It all started with a knock on my door and a six-pack of beer. Ethan was standing there in his usual hoodie and backwards cap, looking like he hadn't slept. His face was tight, nervous. I hadn't seen him like that in a while. Not since his last breakup, not since his dog got sick, not since his finals week meltdown when we were in college. "You got a second?" he asked. That was Ethan. Never explained anything in a text. Always had to show up in person, even if it was just to ask to borrow a phone charger. "Yeah," I said, stepping aside. "You okay?" He dropped onto my couch, cracked a beer, and handed me one without asking. That was our routine. No greetings. Just beer and whatever chaos he was about to bring into my life. "Okay," he said. "I need a favor, a huge one." "Go on," I said, wary. With Ethan, a huge favor once meant pretending to be his twin brother to get out of a speeding ticket. Another time, it meant helping him build a bunk bed at 2 a.m. He took a breath. "My sister's getting married next weekend. It's a big deal. Her whole fiancé's family is going to be there, and I told everyone that I'm bringing someone." "Okay," I raised an eyebrow. "They think I'm bringing a boyfriend." Silence. He took another swig. "And, that boyfriend is you." I nearly choked on my beer. "What?" "I didn't mean to. It just happened, man. My mom kept pestering me about why I'm always single, and I kind of panicked and said I was seeing someone. Then she wanted to know who, and I said your name." I stared at him. "So you told your whole family that you're gay and that you're dating me, just for the weekend," he said, like that made it normal. "You don't even have to do much. Just show up with me, act like we're dating, be nice to my mom, maybe hold my hand during the speeches or whatever." I blinked. "Dude, I'm gay. You're not." "I know," he said, looking embarrassed for the first time. "But I trust you. And I figured if I'm going to fake something this weird, I want it to be with someone who actually gets it." I opened my mouth. Closed it again. My brain was buffering. He looked at me, serious now. "I swear I'll owe you forever, you name it. Just help me survive this thing." I sighed. Because Ethan wasn't just some friend. He was my friend. The guy who once stayed up all night with me after my first heartbreak. Who drove 4 hours just to bring me soup when I had COVID. Who showed up, always. So I said, "Fine. But you're sleeping on the floor." He grinned. "Deal." The wedding was in the mountains. Some rustic fancy lodge with wood-paneled walls and a view that made you feel like you were on top of the world. Ethan and I drove up together, his playlist blaring through the speakers, mostly 90s rock, with a few guilty pleasure pop songs he only sang when he thought I wasn't paying attention. We got there late, of course. Ethan never left early for anything. His family swarmed him the second we walked in. His mom hugged him like she hadn't seen him in years, even though it had only been 6 months. Then her eyes flicked to me, and she lit up. "You must be Josh," she said, pulling me in before I could respond. "He's told us so much about you." I glanced at Ethan, who gave me a tight, panicked smile. Over the next few hours, I was introduced to a dozen aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents, all of whom seemed absolutely thrilled that Ethan had, quote, finally found someone. The compliments ranged from, "You're much cuter than his last girlfriend," to, "You have such a calm energy, I like that." Ethan stuck to me like glue. Every time I shifted away from him, he'd put a hand on my back or tug me closer, like we really were a couple. It was subtle at first. A shared drink, a lingering look. But then came the dancing. The reception was wild. His family could party. The dance floor was packed with people who clearly didn't care about rhythm, just energy. Ethan pulled me into the middle of it and started jumping like a lunatic. I laughed, spun him around, and we goofed off like we always did. Then the music changed, slowed down. And suddenly Ethan was pulling me in, his hands settling on my hips. My heart stuttered. You sure about this?" I whispered. "Just for show," he said quietly. But his voice wasn't as confident as before. We danced, his arms around me, my hands on his shoulders. And it felt different. Too real. Too easy. I looked up at him, and for a second, he wasn't looking past me. He was looking at me. That's when I realized I wasn't pretending anymore. But the craziest part? Neither was he. The next morning, I woke up in the same bed as Ethan. Fully clothed, nothing happened. But still, we'd shared hotel beds plenty of times on trips, but something about this time felt different. There was less space between us than usual. His hand had somehow found its way to rest near my hip, and when I stirred, his fingers twitched like they didn't want to let go. He didn't mention it when he woke up. Just stretched, yawned, and asked if I wanted room service. Casual, like we hadn't slow danced like boyfriends in front of 50 people last night, but I wasn't casual. My brain wouldn't shut up. He looked at me like he meant it. His hand was on my waist. He pulled me closer, and yet he hadn't said a word about it. The second day was worse. Worse because he kept doing it. Touching my shoulder, whispering jokes into my ear, sitting just a little too close at brunch. I wasn't sure if he even realized he was doing it. But I did, every time. That evening, after a long afternoon of wine tasting and small talk with relatives, we found ourselves back in the hotel room. Ethan flopped onto the bed and groaned. "Remind me to never fake date again," he muttered. I sat at the edge of the bed, untangling my dress shirt from where he'd thrown it earlier. "I warned you." Yeah, you were right." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Hey, Josh." "Yeah?" He sat up, leaned back against the headboard, and looked at me like he was trying to figure out the words before they left his mouth. "Did anything about last night feel weird to you?" My pulse jumped. Define weird. "I don't know. I mean, the dancing. The pretending. It felt kinda not fake?" I looked down at my shirt, tried to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, I noticed," he exhaled. "I didn't think it would feel like that. I didn't expect it to, mess with my head." I finally looked at him. "You think it messed with your head?" He met my eyes. I think I liked it too much. The silence that followed felt like someone pressed pause on the world. "I've never looked at a guy like that before," he said, quieter now. "But with you, it didn't feel wrong. It felt easy, natural." I swallowed. "You don't have to say this just because you're overwhelmed or confused." "I'm not confused," he said quickly. Then he hesitated. "Okay, maybe I am, but not in a bad way. He stopped, got off the bed, started pacing. "I thought I knew myself," he said. "But maybe I didn't. Maybe this thing with you, whatever it is, it's showing me something I didn't let myself see before." I sat there, heart beat in my throat. He turned to face me. "I crossed the line, didn't I?" I stood up. "You didn't cross a line, Ethan. But you're standing on the edge of one, and I need to know if you actually want to step over it. Because I can't be your experiment. I can't go through this if it's just a phase or a game." He stepped closer. "I don't think it's a phase." "Then what is it?" He looked at me with that same intense, searching expression he'd worn during the slow dance. "I think it's real. And I think I want more." And just like that, everything changed. I didn't know what to say. There was Ethan, the same guy who once dared me to do a keg stand in front of his frat brothers. The same guy who said he couldn't even cry during sad movies. And now he was standing in front of me saying this might be real. And I'd waited years for something like this. A moment. A possibility. But it felt fragile, like one wrong move and it would vanish. "You want more?" I repeated, trying to buy time. "What does that even mean?" He rubbed the back of his neck, something he always did when he was nervous. "It means I don't want this to end when the wedding's over. It means I want to see what this is between us, if it's something." "You're not gay," I said, not accusing, just stating the fact. "I know," he said, almost sheepish, "but maybe it's not that simple. Maybe it's not about a label. Maybe it's just you." My throat went tight. I'd spent so long hiding how I felt about him, pretending it was just friendship. I never let myself believe he'd see me the same way. "And you're sure this isn't just the wedding vibes talking?" I asked. "No champagne clouding your judgment?" He stepped forward, closer now. "Josh, I haven't stopped thinking about last night, about how good it felt to be close to you, and not just for show." His hand brushed mine. Light. Testing. I didn't pull away. "So what happens now?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. He looked nervous. hopeful. I was kind of hoping you'd tell me. I smiled, a little despite myself. First, you stop pacing like a maniac. Second, we talk about this, for real, no games. He nodded. Okay. Yeah, I want that. We sat on the edge of the bed, knees touching. And for the first time in our friendship, the silence between us wasn't awkward. It was heavy, electric. He turned toward me, his voice quieter now. I don't know where this goes, but I don't want to pretend anymore. Not with you. Then, before I could answer, he leaned in, not fast, not dramatic, just a slow, unsure press of lips against mine, gentle, like a question. And I answered it. We didn't sleep that night. Not in the way you'd think. We just lay there, side by side, talking about everything. His fears, my doubts, what this might mean, what we might become. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't even romantic, really. It was real, and it was ours. The morning after didn't feel like waking up from a dream. It felt like waking up into something real. Ethan was still next to me, lying on his back, one arm tucked behind his head, the other grazing my hand where it rested between us. The light from the mountain sun streamed in through the cheap hotel curtains, catching on the messy curls at the top of his forehead. He looked peaceful, calm in a way I rarely saw him. And then his eyes opened. "You're staring," he murmured, his voice rough from sleep. "You drool," I replied. He grinned. "Only for you, babe," I groaned. "No, don't start calling me babe. We haven't even had our first real date yet." Ethan turned on his side to face me. "Then, let's fix that." "What now?" "Yeah, let's do a real date. Dinner, drinks, awkward conversation, the works." I raised an eyebrow. Traditionally, a date doesn't involve sharing a hotel bed with your fake boyfriend turned whatever I am now. He looked at me seriously for a second. "You're the guy the first can't stop thinking about. That's what you are." It hit me then. He meant it. He wasn't just swept up in the romantic haze of a wedding weekend. He wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. Not his family, not even himself. He was here, with me. Later that day, after the post-wedding brunch, where we were the couple everyone wanted to gossip about, Ethan pulled me aside before we got back in the car. "My mom hugged me this morning," he said. "Told me she's never seen me this happy. I didn't know what to say." I watched him, unsure where this was going, but I wanted to tell her that it's because of you. That shut me up for a second. "I don't know what this is going to look like," he said. "I might screw it up. I'll probably say the wrong thing 100 times. But I want to try. For real. Not just for the weekend." And for the first time, I didn't feel like the sidekick, or the backup plan, or the experiment. I felt chosen, and I chose him right back. The car ride home felt different. We weren't joking around like we usually did, throwing snacks at each other or arguing over the playlist. There was a quiet, settled feeling between us. Not awkward, just full, like we'd both stepped into something neither of us could fully explain yet. Ethan had one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually on the center console. Every now and then his fingers would brush mine. It felt intentional. "You okay?" he asked after a long stretch of silence. "Yeah, just thinking." He nodded. "Me too." I wanted to ask what he was thinking about, but I didn't. I didn't need to. I knew. That week back home, everything shifted. We weren't officially out, not yet. He asked for some time to sort out what this meant for him, for his family, for the rest of his life, and I respected that. I knew how big of a thing this was for him. But in the meantime, we fell into something new. Gentle, intimate, real. He came over more often than usual. We didn't make a big deal out of it. He'd show up with takeout, toss me a drink, and flop onto the couch next to me like nothing had changed. But it had. The way he touched me now wasn't playful. It was thoughtful. Soft. A hand on my leg when we watched movies. A quick kiss on the cheek when he left for the night. Like he was slowly learning how to speak a language he'd never tried before. And I could feel him getting better at it every day. One night, a week after the wedding, we sat out on my balcony, legs tangled, a blanket draped over us. The city was quiet. The sky was dark. "I told my sister," he said suddenly. I turned. Told her what? That we're a thing, that I'm figuring this out. I blinked. Yeah? How'd she take it? She laughed, said she always kind of knew. That made me smile. She's not wrong. He nudged me. You knew before I did. I definitely knew before you did. He leaned in then, pressed his lips to mine. It wasn't desperate or intense. It was soft, like a promise. Like he was saying, I'm still here. I still choose you. And I kissed him back. Because I did too. Things didn't get easier right away. In fact, they got harder. Ethan didn't know how to talk about us to his friends. He'd tell them we were just hanging out, even though I'd stayed the night at his place 3 times that week. He'd post group pics on Instagram and crop me out, not in a cruel way, but in a way that stung. And even though I told myself to be patient, it was wearing on me. One Friday night, we were supposed to go out to dinner. I waited, then waited some more. Finally, I got a text, can we rain check? Got drinks with the guys. Sorry. That was it. No call. No, I'll make it up to you. Just a disappearing act. I stared at the message, thumbs hovering, heart sinking. For a moment, I considered brushing it off, letting it slide. Again. But then I remembered what I told him the night after the wedding, that I wouldn't be anyone's secret. So I texted back, this isn't working if you keep hiding me. Call me when you're ready to stop pretending. And I left it at that. He didn't respond. Not that night. Not the next morning. It took 3 days. 3 days of silence. 3 days of me trying to distract myself. Telling myself I hadn't made a mistake by putting up a boundary. Then he showed up at my door. Hair a mess. Hoodie wrinkled. That look in his eyes, uncertain and soft, like he was bracing for the fallout. I messed up, he said. I didn't say anything. I got scared, he continued. Being with you. It makes me feel more like myself than I've ever felt. But it also makes me feel like I don't recognize my life anymore. And that freaked me out. I exhaled slowly. And I don't want to keep pretending. Not to my friends, not to myself. I want to do this, really do this. I crossed my arms. I need to know you mean that. I do, he stepped forward. Look, I can't promise I'll get everything right. I've never done this before. But I'm in, if you'll have me. And just like that, my anger melted into something else. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe something better. Hope. Ethan didn't become a different person overnight. He still fumbled. Still hesitated when someone from his old life asked who I was. Still got quiet when we passed a group of his friends on the street holding hands. But he was trying. And that mattered. The first time he introduced me as his boyfriend, really said the word, was at his friend Tyler's barbecue. I wasn't expecting much, just figured I'd be his +1, like usual. I kept my expectations low. But as we stepped into the backyard, beers already flowing, cornhole games in full swing, Ethan reached for my hand and didn't let go. This is Josh, he said to the group. My boyfriend. It hit me like a warm rush through my chest. Tyler blinked, then smiled. Hell yeah, dude. Took you long enough. Later, Ethan pulled me aside, cheeks a little flushed. I've never said that out loud before. Felt good. You looked like you were going to pass out, I teased. He grinned. Worth it. That night, back at his place, we sat on the couch watching reruns. His head was in my lap, my fingers tangled in his hair, and I could feel it. This quiet steadiness building between us. Not the rush of something new, but the weight of something real. You know, he said, voice soft, this started out as me trying to lie my way through a wedding. And now? He tilted his head up to look at me. Now I can't imagine doing any of this without you. I didn't say anything for a second. Then I leaned down, kissed him slowly, and said the one thing I hadn't said yet. I love you. He froze, then smiled. I love you too. And this time, we weren't pretending. Fall crept in slowly. Cool mornings, golden leaves, sweaters pulled out from the back of the closet. And somewhere in the middle of it, Ethan and I settled into whatever this new version of us was. He moved in gradually. A toothbrush here, a drawer of clothes there, Until one day I realized there wasn't a single night in the last month he hadn't stayed over. And it didn't feel rushed. It felt right. The night he brought home takeout and dropped the keys to my apartment, our apartment, on the counter without thinking, I realized he was home. One evening, we hosted a small dinner for a few mutual friends. Nothing fancy, pasta, cheap wine, too many candles. At some point, someone asked, "So how did this even happen?" I glanced at Ethan, curious what he'd say. He shrugged with a small smile. Told my family I had a fake boyfriend to get out of awkward questions at a wedding. Only, turns out, I wasn't really faking it. There was laughter, some teasing. But when the noise died down, he looked at me and added, "Best lie I ever told." That night, after everyone left, we curled up on the couch, the remains of dinner still on the table, the scent of garlic and wine lingering in the air. "I meant it, you know," he said into my neck. "What?" "Everything. Us. You. I wasn't supposed to feel this way. But I do. I really do." I turned to him, brushing my fingers through his hair. "I never thought you'd end up here. With me." He leaned in, kissed me like he had nothing left to hide. "I didn't either," he whispered, "but I'm glad I did." And in that moment, I wasn't thinking about how it started. Not about the lie. Not about the pretending. Only about how far we'd come. Because the truth was, he took it too far. And I was damn glad he did.